Thirdly, the quality of workmanship throughout was of an especially high standard. Fourthly, good judgment was used in the choice of a range of construction techniques, the intelligent use of plant and other resources, and in the balance of on-site and off-site work. Finally, the work was successfully completed to meet a tight construction period, and this was the offshore sugar loading facilities at Lucinda. Let me, on behalf of the jury and on behalf of the Federation, offer our congratulations to Transfield, the constructors of this facility, and I'd ask if they'd come forward to receive the plaque and certificate. John Knitson, congratulations to you for a very fine project and on winning the AFCC 1979 Construction Achievement Award.
This is my 25th anniversary in Australia. Perth is the place where I first met this country and her people. The impression I got was good, and I decided to stay. The first project I got involved was the wheat storage shed at Midland Junction for the cooperative bulk handling of the state. From there, I went to Queensland. In 1960, with the award of a major project, the Barron River hydroelectric scheme near Cairns, Transfield, Queensland was born into the Transfield family.
Transfield, Queensland's first contract was to construct the entire Barron River hydroelectric plant, including weir, tunnels, surge tank, penstock, underground power station and tail race tunnel for a price of £2.25 million. Such a contract was unusual, for in those days, the major components of a project were usually separated and awarded to different contractors specialising in one particular skill. Under the management of John Panizza and aided by some 250 enthusiastic workers, most of whom were migrants, Transfield, Queensland worked around the clock to complete the project in the tropical rainforests of North Queensland. In doing so, they also set a Queensland record for driving a 3.5 metre diameter tunnel. In 1964, the company was awarded the contract to construct a sugar shed at Lucinda, North Queensland, about halfway between Townsville and Cairns. The job included all the concrete foundations and walls, the tunnel, the structural steel erection and the cladding. Within 15 years, Transfield would be back in Lucinda for a major award-winning project. During the period from 1968 to 79, Transfield constructed many smaller bridges in Queensland. The Etheridge River Bridge at Georgetown, 400 kilometres inland from Cairns. The Russell River Bridge at Townsville. The Septimus Bridge near Mackay, a bridge at Gladstone and others. In '66, a pipeline was constructed at Collinsville Power Station and another completed for the Capalaba Water Treatment Works. In '73, Transfield commenced an unusual pipeline contract for the Mount Isa Water Board, laying 61.5 kilometres of steel pipeline from Julius Dam to Mount Isa. At Swanbank Power Station near Ipswich, a twin steel pipeline which crossed a lake on piled trestles connected the pumping station and the bases of 4 cooling towers. Four other forced draft cooling towers were also constructed at Queensland Alumina at Gladstone about this time. Transfield's first project in Mount Isa was to design and construct a transmission line from Mica Creek Power Station to Mount Isa Terminal. For the first time in Australia, a transmission line was designed and constructed by a contractor. In 1963, the K57 shaft was erected. Pipelines and water reticulation projects for the City Council were just some of the 1,300 jobs completed in the Mount Isa area, the latest being the heavy media plant for Mount Isa mines. In 1968, Transfield, Queensland won the contract to build the Gardens Point Bridge across the Brisbane River. The concrete-filled steel foundation piles extended 38 metres below the river water level. Some of the concrete segments on the south side were winched into position after being cast in Transfield's casting yard and then carried by the gantry crane to a store yard from which the 150-tonne capacity floating crane Aquila would carry them across the river. Aquila was designed by Transfield especially for this project, as was the workboat. Together, they helped place 366 concrete segments weighing between 50 and 100 tonnes each, as well as all the river false work. When completed, the bridge span of 180 metres was the second largest in the world for a concrete box girder bridge. The bridge was opened in 1972 by the Premier of Queensland, Mr. Joe Bioki-Peterson, who renamed it the Captain Cook Bridge. A unique walk across the bridge was organised by radio station 4BH and Apex, and thousands of certificates were issued to raise money for charity. The bridge is an integral part of the South East Freeway and is devoted entirely to freeway motor traffic. Its use by pedestrians for one day became an historical event. Transfield, Queensland also won the contract to construct the freeway interchange south of the Captain Cook Bridge. This project comprised 4 bridges, one to carry arterial traffic over the expressway leading on to the Captain Cook Bridge, 2 to carry expressway traffic over an arterial road, and 1 crossing a feeder lane to the expressway. The associated roadworks to link this interchange with the Captain Cook Bridge and the expressway were also part of this project. The raising of the Awonga Dam near Gladstone in central Queensland was commenced in July 1969 and completed in August 1970. The project comprised casting concrete blocks on top of the existing dam wall and tying them through the existing dam with stressing cables. The North Pine Dam, a concrete gravity dam on the northern outskirts of Brisbane, was designed by the Queensland Coordinator General's Department for the Brisbane City Council and constructed by Transfield, Queensland. It comprises about 200,000 cubic metres of concrete in 850 placings. The main wall is 43 metres high and some 584 metres long. The concrete was batched by Transfield's own plant and placed using a cableway carrying 3 cubic metre buckets and using 2 cranes. The installation of the bulkheads, radial gates and the spillway bridge were also included in this project. The Fairbairn Dam at Emerald, about 250 kilometres inland from Rockhampton, is another major construction by Transfield. This is an earthfill and concrete dam containing 60,000 cubic metres of concrete and 5.2 million cubic metres of fill. This material was placed using Transfield's earth-moving equipment into a main wall, which was 820 metres long, 314 metres wide at the base, and 32 metres high. Transfield, Queensland quarried the rock for riprap bank protection and for concrete aggregates, and batched all their own concrete on site. Included in the contract was the driving of a 9-metre diameter concrete-lined diversion tunnel and the construction of a pumping station. 1 year after completion, the January 1974 heavy rains completely filled and overflowed the dam. In 1974, Transfield opened their steel fabrication shop at Darra. Here, the main girders and false work for the Merivale Bridge were fabricated. A gantry crane with a 25-metre span and a 140-metre run was set up to enable the complete trial assembly of the bridge arches. The shop has completed many projects since. It is currently producing a 13,000-tonne order for 484 steel pots for the Gladstone aluminium smelter. Zinc Line's galvanising shop was opened adjacent to the fabrication shop in 1975 and has the largest galvanising pot in Queensland. This allows it to galvanise girders and columns up to 12.5 metres long using double dipping method. The plant also has a centrifuge to provide for economic galvanising for small components such as washers, nuts and bolts. Zinc Line also possessed the largest shot blasting room in Queensland, which is used for the preparation of steel structures prior to painting. Transfield, Queensland has developed a factory building with a clear span of 26 metres, 14 metres high and variable lengths. It is constructed of precast concrete columns and roof beams. This concept allows large buildings to be erected on sites which have difficult access. In June of '75, Transfield, Queensland was awarded the contract to construct the historic rail link joining the South Brisbane Railway Station to Roma Street Station on the northern side of the river. The main river crossing was to be a steel arch of box section with a span of 133 metres. The designing engineers, Cameron McNamara, devised a rather unique system for constructing the river piers. The bottom of each pier was to be a concrete tub which could be floated into position and sunk onto false work. The smaller pier base was cast on the river bank, lifted into the water by the Aquila and towed upriver to the pier location. The cast in situ concrete box girders were cast on top of the Transfield designed and fabricated steel false work. The steel deck and arch girders were prefabricated at Transfield's Darra shop and completely trial assembled. The 100-tonne sections were then trucked to the bridge site and erected using the floating crane Aquila, which threaded them into the false work towers on the river. The main arch section, weighing 360 tonnes, was assembled on 2 barges, towed under the bridge, and then lifted 30 metres into its final position. The navigation channel was closed for only 2 days while this work was completed. The deck section, weighing 300 tonnes, was erected in a similar manner. The cables between the arch and the deck were stressed, the rail track laid, and on the 18th of November 1978, the Merivale Bridge was opened, linking the rail systems across the river at Brisbane for the first time. In January of '77, Transfield returned to Lucinda to construct a 5.7-kilometre jetty, a wharf and a ship loader. These would allow the port to load the world's biggest sugar ships. Sections of steel tube were trucked 100 kilometres to be welded on site into 40-metre-long piles, painted and rolled into the water to be towed out to sea. Transfield, Queensland used its own fleet of boats, tugs and barges, and the 150-tonne floating crane Aquila to transport all the necessary supplies and equipment offshore. The piles were lifted by one of the 3 90-tonne cranes, placed into the pile gates to hold them securely in position before being driven into the seabed. Personnel who came out by crew boats scrambled up nets to reach the working platforms some 6 metres above the sea. 20-metre-long concrete girders weighing 14 tonnes each were cast on shore, loaded onto a barge 6 at a time, and pushed out to the jetty for erection by the 90-tonne travelling cranes. The ship loader, fabricated and trial erected by Transfield in Sydney, was erected in 2 90-tonne components on shore. Each was then carried out by the floating crane Aquila to be placed on the wharf almost 6 kilometres offshore. The conveyor galleries were fabricated in Cairn, completely fitted out with idlers, electrics, water pipes and cladding on shore before being barged out to the structure. Transfield fabricated 2 erection bridges, each carrying a 90-ton travelling crane on top. One was used to construct the jetty from the shore to a point 3 kilometres offshore, and the other from that point to meet the offshore wharf. The production record of these 2 crews was 220 metres of jetty in 1 week. The crew starting from the shore reached the midpoint in 11 months, and soon afterwards, in September 78, the final closure was made, joining the jetty to the offshore wharf. For this milestone, visitors came from everywhere, representatives from the engineers, CSR and Transfield. All the construction personnel were on hand to witness the symbolic closing. It was a proud moment for all when Chairman Franco Belgiorno Nettis traditionally marked the occasion with a bottle of champagne. "25 months after the contract was signed and 3 months ahead of schedule, sugar is loaded into the first ship at a rate of some 2,000 tonnes per hour. A special commemorative medallion was cast by Transfield and presented to Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser, who officially opened the offshore loading facility. This project won the coveted AFCC Construction Achievement Award for 1979, as well as an award from the Institution of Engineers. For the coal mining industry, Transfield Queensland erected 2 Bucyrus Airy 1370W draglines at Oakey Creek. Each weighs 3,000 tonnes and walks on feet, taking 2.5 metre steps every 10 seconds. The boom extends 100 metres and carries a 50 cubic metre bucket, which it can fill, slew and empty and return to refill in 45 seconds. These 2 machines were completed in 18 months, certainly an Australian record. The Gateway Bridge is the largest project which Transfield Queensland has undertaken. Transfield is the sponsor of a consortium which will finance, design, construct and operate a toll bridge. McDonald, Wagner and Priddle, in association with Lozinger Limited of Switzerland, are the designers, and City National are the financiers. The bridge has 2 height limitations. It must be high enough to allow shipping to pass beneath it, and yet low enough not to protrude into the airspace of nearby Brisbane Airport. Its main span of 260 metres will make it the longest for a concrete box girder bridge in the world. This project is now well underway, with the foundations and piling proceeding on both sides of the river. The Brisbane office of Transfield Queensland coordinates and provides administrative and technical services for all the projects in the state. It is here that tenders are prepared, specialised supplies and services arranged, insurance is negotiated, payrolls calculated and accounts processed. At Tarong Power Station near Kingaroy, Transfield Queensland is constructing 2 concrete natural draft cooling towers worth about $20 million. These towers were designed in France by Nord France. They are 113 metres in diameter at the base and rise 120 metres. The concrete in the hyperbolic shell varies from 900 millimetres thick at the base to 600 millimetres at the top, yet it is only 180 millimetres thick at the waist. Not only in Queensland, but all over Australia, Transfield has constructed transmission lines, television towers, power stations, rolling mills, blast furnaces, ship loaders, coal handling plants, ore stackers and reclaimers, oil rigs and platforms, ore treatment plants, and some of the finest bridges in the country. Transfield, at the threshold of one of the most dramatic periods in its 25-year history.